Good evening, everybody. Welcome to December's BZA meeting. To look at the agenda, we'll start with a silent prayer, pledge of allegiance. We'll do roll call. And then we'll start the public hearing on the variance request from Mr. Bennett. And that'll end our public hearing after that. And then we'll go into BZA discussion for our two pending variances. And with that, we'll get started.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Here.
Mr. Palma,
Here.
Mr. Grinnell, absent, Mr. Long,
Here.
Mr. Whitman,
Here.
Mr. Ryba.
Here.
5 present, we have quorum.
Okay, we'll start the public hearing. First, I'll turn it over to Mr. Whitney.
Thank you, Mr. Shrewsbury. As Mr. Shrewsbury indicated, my name is Vic Whitney. I am legal counsel to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The first item on the agenda tonight is the public hearing on a variance request of Josh Bennett for 368 Fayborough Drive. As you note, there is a stenographer who is with us via Zoom. This is a public hearing, so it's being recorded. The dictation is taken on everything said. So in a moment, anyone who potentially may wish to offer comment for or against or whatever regarding that variance request at 368 Fairview Drive, we'll have you stand up and we'll swear you in. If you decide that you aren't going to offer comment, you don't have to. You're not locked into offering comment just by being sworn in. But if you think you might want to offer comment, we do need to have you sworn in before you would be able to offer that comment. When I turn it back over to Mr. Shrewsbury in a minute, he will call the applicant and then anyone else who may wish to offer comment who's been duly sworn to the lectern. When you come up to the lectern, there's a microphone there. Please, right off the bat, state clearly your name and your address into the microphone so that if we do need to get a hold of you after tonight's hearing, we'll be able to do so. And then go ahead and offer your comments. Please direct them to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They may or may not have questions for you during the time that you're providing your comments. If they do, please wait and hear them out before you respond. Like I said, we have a stenographer and she can only take down dictation of one person speaking at any given time. And then after their question or comment is made to you, of course, feel free to respond. So again, this is just with anyone that may be offering testimony on 368 Fayborough Drive. There is the other item on the other variance request of 376 East Cherry Street that is on the agenda, but the public hearing has nothing to do with that. So that's a whole separate matter. This is just on 368 Fayborough Drive. So anybody, including the applicant, that may wish to offer comment or testimony, if you would please rise, and we will get you sworn in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, and under penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Shrewsbury, I will move to admit exhibits on this 368 Fayborough Drive application. I have Exhibit A, which is a 6-page document that is the application and related documents, including the plans and drawings submitted by the applicant. Exhibit A. Exhibit B is a 7-page document, which is the public notice and the proof of mailings to the affected property owners. Exhibit C is a 5-page document, which is the staff report that you received concerning this application. And Exhibit D is the recent submittal that came in this evening from the applicant. It's 5 pages front and back, I guess 3 pages, but 5 front and back of additional drawings and photographs that the applicant brought in supplement to their application. So with that, I will move to admit exhibits A, B, C, and D into the record.
Okay, thank you. So we will get started with the applicant. Mr. Josh Bennett, if you could please come to the podium and explain your request.
I'm Josh Bennett, 360 Railroad Drive. Everybody hear me okay? Great, thank you for hearing my request today. Basically, we moved here in early August. We're getting ready to expand our family. And we're looking to have a little bit of a fence in the backyard to help us with a little bit of privacy and protections. We do have a dog we'd like to have secured in that back of the yard as well. As we were working through the plans of the design, we tried to keep it in line with a lot of the designs that are already in place with the neighborhood, actually fence our neighbors across the street and just kind of aligned with the layout of other neighbors that are also on that. Making sure into Silver Estates. The document that we added today is just to add additional visual support from what's already kind of been submitted in the actual application itself. And it's also presented a really good opportunity to meet our neighbors as people recently moved in about 90 days ago. There's one small change that we're looking at probably doing in the back of the lot. You know, our neighbors requested to consider lowering that to a 4 or 5 foot width instead, so we'd like to kind of explore that option as well. We added a kind of a raised lot in comparison with theirs, so their concern is that we would have a fence further out of the walls of the fortress. So we're like mindful of our neighbors and we kind of a good stewards and good members of the community with regards to that. I don't have really much else to add to that piece other than if there's some questions or kind of working through, you know.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? I didn't realize I skipped over the staff report.
I think the applicant did a good job, but
Before you go, hang out, let's listen to the staff report, and then if any questions come up, we'll have you there.
right. So as the applicant said, he's looking for a privacy fence on a corner lot in the rear yard or side yard. We've done a few of these in here, but just to recap why that is, our zoning code doesn't specifically allow for privacy fences. They kind of locate that to this board. So this board has the approval matter on viewing any fence that is not a split rail fence in a corner, rear lot, or side yard of the property. So that is why we were here today. As the applicant said, there are other cases of these types of fences in corner lots in their neighborhood, which I provided in the staff report as well. I believe I found about 7 of them doing that. And then as you guys know, I'm sure going down Miller Drive, there are a lot of privacy fences already located within that as well. And then doing a little drive-by of the neighborhood there, based on what I was looking at, and as the applicant shown in their photos here, I don't believe that this fence in this location would cause any sightline issues with the intersection of Fayborough or Miller either. Yeah, this is staff report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, one of the exhibits I brought on, it's page 1, there's kind of a view of the front of the house, kind of shows where that is line be. The line indicates it'd be a little bit further than it is. It's actually going to get the back of the property line, about 10 to 15 feet from the side of the house, and then runs back on a bunch of trees that are already out there, kind of splitting that garden. It's already out back with those trees.
Okay. Your variance request is just for the fence, not necessarily the location on your property. Any distance from any property line or anything like that, strictly for a fence.
We can alter that. I think when we put the design together, we're trying to be mindful of the easements that were tied to utility.
Okay. But there's no variance request that you need in terms of location or relation to any other build line, property line.
So
There's not, to confirm.
Okay. Okay, does anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant?
Are you asking to change your request to lower the backyard's height?
if that would help secure the approval for absolutely.
And just to be clear, right now you're asking for 6 foot in the back?
Correct.
And you'd be willing to go to
For
4 foot? Thank you. And do you know what the variant change of topography that is then because of that?
it would be an estimate, but it's I think about 4 or 5 feet per property of neighbors will have.
Okay. And their fence, is there a fence behind your fence?
There is one on another lot, but it's not the lot where the neighbor that had the concern.
Okay, is that 6 foot as privacy?
Yeah, of course. It's,
But it's elevation wise a little bit lower than yours.
it's like,
That, I don't need to see a picture of it, but if someone else. And then just to confirm, you are asking to have the fence installed as per the drawing with the red lines?
Yeah, it's approximate to that.
Okay,
Yes.
so it would start behind, at the rear of your
Yeah.
house. Thank you.
How do you plan to maintain the fence?
I have a pressure washer that would go through and clean it up with it each year. It's also a vinyl, so it'd be easier to maintain as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Do I need a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, you can. You don't necessarily need one, but sure.
Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Okay.
Second,
Mr. Iba,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Okay, BZA discussion. For the variance request from Mr. Wampler at 376 Cherry Street. Is there anything to discuss amongst the board?
That you probably need a motion to remove from the table. Yes.
Oh, right, sorry. Man, I'm missing all kinds of stuff.
I'll motion to remove from the table.
Second.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Iba,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
And then there have been some updates, so did the applicant want to speak to that or Alex, did you want to?
Dale, if you'd like to speak to it, you can.
My name's Dale Walker, my wife Carol Walker. We own 376 East Cherry Street. We're asking for front rear setbacks and square footage variance for the lot and a new home at 376 East Cherry Street. I just want to describe the property a little bit. It's bordered by one residential property that sets to the west, one private driveway to the north that feeds 3 homes that do not border our property. And the other 2 borders are Walnut Street, a little over 212 feet and 100 feet of road frontage on East Cherry. We'd like to build a little home there, facing Walnut on the property. I've listened to your comments and questions from last meeting. Unfortunately, there's no instructions for me to do this. This is all new, so I did listen, and here's what I come up with. We went approximately 1,000 feet down East Cherry Street and 700 feet north on Walnut Street. And this is what we found. 75 Walnut Street, 0.25 acres, 172 East Cherry Street, 0.197 acres. 321 East Cherry Street, 176.176 acres. 328 East Cherry Street, 0.27 acres, 45 Walnut Street, 0.254 acres. 164 East Cherry Street, 0.197 acres. 37 Walnut Street, 0.257 acres, 127 Walnut Street, 0.25 acres. 243 East Cherry Street, 0.153 acres, 227 East Cherry Street, 0.176 acres. There's 10 homes that average 0.218 acres, we're asking for 0.213 acres, the difference is probably, I didn't do the math, but I bet it's roughly 100 square feet. So it does fit the neighborhood in lot size. Then we went the same distance to find square footage of houses. 75 Walnut Street, 1,158 square feet, 37 Walnut Street, 1,008 square feet. 143 Walnut Street, 1,024 square feet, 376 East Cherry Street, 692 square feet. 304 East Cherry Street, 1,090 square feet. 227 East Cherry Street, 1,125 square feet. 221 East Cherry Street, 1,160 square feet. 312 East Cherry Street, 1,152 square feet. 196 East Cherry Street, 1,004 square feet. 325 East Cherry Street, 858 square feet. There's an average of 10 homes right in that small area that average 1,027 square feet. We're asking for 1,100 square feet. So that does fit the area. Then we went to rear setbacks. These are a little harder to find, but there's 5 right there. And they're all over town. So here's 20 of them. The 5 that are close, 109 Walnut Street, 9 feet. Rear setback from 213 East Cherry Street, 16 feet. 243 East Cherry Street, 8 feet. 304 East Cherry Street, 4 feet. 5 Otis Street, this is on the corner of Cherry and Otis, the next street down from Walnut. Same neighborhood. There's 5 examples right there that average 10-foot rear setbacks. Then there's 15 more here, and I don't know if you want me to read all these addresses, I certainly can. But there's 20 of them right there. These are all over town. They're not that uncommon, just not in group areas as everything else here is. There's 20 of them. They all average, that's 20, they average less than 10 feet rear setback. Then we went 500 feet from our property to get front setbacks. 75 feet from the center line of the road is what's required. So basically what we did was we went down Cherry Street, about 7 or 8 houses, went straight across the street, back up 7 or 8 houses. We got 15 there, right there. Closest neighbors, went to the 5 closest addresses on Walnut Street to the north. And so it's all within 500 feet. 75 Walnut Street. Front setbacks from center line of road 33 feet. 109 Walnut Street, center line of road 29 feet. 110 Walnut Street, 26 feet. 304 East Cherry Street, 30 feet. 312 East Cherry Street, 35 feet. 320 East Cherry Street, 38 feet. 328 East Cherry Street, 39 feet. 333 East Cherry Street, 36 feet. 341 East Cherry Street, 36 feet. 35 East Cherry Street, 38 feet. 10 examples of 10 closest properties we could find average 34 feet rear setback. Front setback from center line of road. We're asking for 40 feet, I believe. So we're beyond that. Then just for fun, we looked at the road frontage because I think that's what's important here. This is the 20 closest homes to our property. And I'm not going to read all these addresses, but there are 20 closest homes. The average of 60 feet of road frontage. All 20 houses, throw them all together, there's 60 feet of road frontage. We have over 300 feet. That's why I think this can be done. Then, I don't know, I hope you got all these, okay. So this is the line we, use the Delaware County office and, Google Earth and the tools they all have on there, 75-foot setbacks, which I've already talked about. I only see one house on there that's set back 75 feet from the center line of the road. I'm not even sure it is. But that's another overhead view. Just showing the center line of the road, and how many houses do not comply in that area. This next one is setbacks and property lines and the existing house and where the new one was set. The new one, I put it on this side for this picture. It could slide anywhere in here. We're gonna have to look at, typically you want to drive it on the high side of the lot. So we'll look at all that when it comes to more planning. But that's, basically shows, where the existing property is, the setbacks, side yards. I put up 14 feet on the side yard. I think you can go up to 8 feet off the side, I believe, but, I probably wouldn't want that close if I wanted to. You know, there's manicure that long, a little bit, 8 feet doesn't do much for drain water. So there's that. Then we went to see what's happening in Sunbury, Ohio. These cluster of houses. These houses, there's several on there, average 4,000 to 7,000 square foot lots. Many of them have 8-foot backyards. I think none of them have more than 40-foot front setbacks, none of them. This is what's being built in the new part of town. And another reason I wanted to show that is an overhead view on this one shows a new home I drew in there. This is the vacant lot. Just to get an overhead view of the density of what this is. It's not bad at all. It fits the entire neighborhood. It's all of Old Sunbury. It looks much better than what they're building in New Sunbury. So we didn't really find any homes right there that was in full compliance of R3 housing that would be built without variance today. Our plan includes a nice looking home, yard, fits the neighborhood. This will produce tens of thousands of dollars for the city of Sunbury through permit fees, inspection fees, tap fees, tax revenue. We have heard one cogent, factual, legal objection or proven adverse condition to any one property owner or the city with this plan. With over 300 feet of road frontage and vacant land already zoned R3 low density housing, and all the comparable homes in the existing neighborhood, I really can't think of any reason why anyone would object to this. We purchased this property 43 years ago. We've talked about building a new home for several years. This decision is extremely important to us and will have a significant impact on our lives. So if there is a concern, objection, or question about this plan, we would certainly like to know so we could open a discussion to look at any modifications that could possibly be made.
And quick note to add, I believe a question was brought up last time regarding the existing house and the setbacks on that, how they would be affected with the new home. There is an image that Mr. Wampler provided showing the setback lines, but just so you have the numbers, the requirement for rear lot off or rear setback off of the home is 40 feet in this zoning, and then it is 8 feet for accessory units. So based on his drawing, he'd be 9 feet off of that lot line for the garage and 42 feet off of the lot line from the rear home. So the current existing home would comply with this lot split. All of its setbacks would still be valid and it'd comply with all those setback regulations, pardon me.
A question on my part. I guess, if I do have a concern or reservation, it's probably on the number of variances you're asking for here. It's not just asking for one. So in your research and you give, and thank you for doing the research here on where we have maybe houses nearby that are not compliant, but did you run across houses that are not compliant to all 4 of the variances you're asking for?
I did not, I didn't do that research to see if any one house needed 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 variances. I did not do that. But, you know, to take 1,000 feet one way and 700 feet one way and 500 feet another way. I will say, if the number of variances is a problem, the reason I put square footage at 1,100 feet of the house is because that's what fits. That's what fits the neighborhood. But if that's a problem, we can go to 1,250 or 13 or no variance at all. That was put in there because I thought it fit better and would be a better plan. So if that is a problem, the number of variances, we're very flexible on the square footage of the house.
I did a little bit of a matchup of the numbers you did provide or the addresses, and I found one that met 3 of the 4 criteria, and a couple that met 2. So I mean, my concern is the number of variances with this request. And as far as what that could look like, I don't know if you've considered other placements of the home on the lot or the footprint of the home to be able to meet more of those variances would be the question here, if there is an opportunity there.
I don't think we can, I don't think we can't get 75 feet off the road and get 40 feet on back property line. You just can't do it on that lot. Square footage is not really, I mean, that fits. It fits everything around it. That's not really awesome. The only thing I think awesome is the square footage of the house. And, but again, I haven't put that in there. That's my thought was it would look better. And fit better. But if it's gotta be no variance for that, I don't know, is it 14 or 1450 minimum?
It's 1,400.
1,400 square feet, 300 more square foot of house, I could do that. With the drop in variance, that's a problem.
And then to follow up with what Mr. Wampler is saying, as he said, 3 of these variances, I don't believe we would be able to, I think 3 would be the minimum he would require, is the lot area would need to be, his lot size isn't flexible. We wouldn't be able to make it bigger based on the current house. And then rear yard and front yard or building setback, if we get rid of one, the other one would increase. There'd be no way to get either of them dropped down.
As far as the property line, it looks like is it the city that owns a part of off the road? How's that work? When I go on the Delaware County Auditor, it shows maybe 15 or so feet off of the road into the yard is.
It'd be just, I would assume it's city right away, but without that right in front of me, I wouldn't know.
Like, is that for, and clearly if it's not owned by him, if they were to choose to widen that road, that would make that road closer, even closer than where it is right now.
Yes, that's correct.
So that would be the other, as far as looking into the future, what the challenges might be there, but yes, you can see that. I don't know if that's considered a right of way or what the case may be, dedicated road right away.
So that would affect every home in the neighborhood.
That would affect, well, that property. Yes, the one you currently own.
Yes. But if they just want to take this, they would take all this, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking, what road name is that? Not Cherry Street, but the other one.
Walnut Street.
Walnut Street. So it's that Walnut Street easement that would be encroaching more closer to the front of your home, as per your proposal. So those are the 2 concerns as far as discussion on my end and considerations there is the number of variances here you're asking for and that easement and how that could potentially impact future, years in the future, not tomorrow.
Well, I'm not sure I can do anything about a right of way, but it looks like this right of way takes up, it's all through here, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And just to be clear, if we were going to widen the road, it would affect every house on Walnut Street. I know we're only showing Mr. Wampler's, but you see how the lots go to the center of the road? We'd have to acquire the road and whatever right of way is necessary. So it would impact all of the homes and all of the lots along there.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
If we could go back to the property, I had one question for the staff, actually. So in one of our previous meetings, there was a public comment about concern for visibility as they turn out of the road from behind the property. Have you looked at that? Do you feel there is a concern for visibility when,
So if they're coming out of the driveway to turn onto Walnut,
Yes.
I personally didn't see an issue with it. They'd be 43 feet from the center line of that road. So I think they'd have plenty of visual to make that turn if they came up onto the road.
Just so a reference, this is.
Dale, can you go to this other screen?
That's. 507, a little further back than that.
Yeah, it might be easier if you could.
Go to the screen.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's okay.
I measured this, it's 30, I believe it's 36 feet. If we can see the house up here. I think that one was, well, you guys got the paper, what was that one, 40 feet from center line?
You've got 43 feet.
This house?
No, that's 40 feet to that house. Yours is 43 for your proposed house.
Behind there. I don't
Yeah,
see
yeah.
how That would be, this is a private driveway, it's not a service road or anything,
Right.
by the way. I'm not sure how that would impact anybody turning out, is that what it's in some ways?
So I just wanted the staff's opinion
Oh.
on sightlines, that's all. Okay, does anybody else on the board have any questions for the applicant?
No, I would just like to thank you for the diligence that you did to provide us with the information. I know this is a big decision for you and it's something that you really feel passionate about. Providing us this information is going to be able to give us enough details to make the decision tonight. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, is there anything to discuss amongst the board?
And I would say that I voiced kind of my concerns here with this one on the number of variances. If there's any way to be able to reduce that, I would be concerned about the precedents that we might be setting by approving this and what that might mean for future requests as well due to that.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I mean, maybe the way to at least address that issue is if we make a motion to approve the applicant's proposal as submitted, and then we can do an amendment to change the size of the house. Then there could be a vote on that amendment to see if that's within the direction in which the board wants to go. So I think that would get you at least the discussion on both topics. So how about we do that as a strategy for at least considering?
Okay, does anybody have any other proposals before?
Those can also be amendments to it, so.
Yeah.
Just one comment.
Sure.
Some of these houses that are here as examples were built before there were cars. So I mean, there was no roads here at the time. It's a difficult zoning that we're trying to fit something in. It's definitely a square peg in a round hole, so.
To Mr. Ryba's point, and that's astute. 811119, which does provide the criteria for approval in this, specifically says non-conforming uses of neighboring land, structures, or buildings in the same district shall not be considered as grounds for approving the variance. So I don't know whether some or all of these were non-conforming uses. I'm sure quite a few probably were. It also references other districts and even permitted uses in other districts. And I think probably some of what was shown was plan development, which would be a different district, and those would be subject to consideration either in the board or for the Board of Appeals tonight. So to that point, Mr. Riva, I think that is something that the board needs to consider to the extent non-conforming uses were offered. They're really not subject to consideration in terms of the board's decision tonight pursuant to the code. And the burden is on the applicant. So to the extent that issue is not obvious, the code affirmatively puts the burden of proof on the applicant. So if he doesn't have information to demonstrate clearly to the board whether they are non-conforming or not, then to that respect, to that issue, he would not have met his burden.
Approach.
Explain.
To approve the applicant's request or to make a motion to approve and vote on that request. And then if there's amendments to that, we can have that
Okay, so you
conversation.
are proposing to vote on all variance requests for the property except for the square footage?
So I think the way to frame that, so I'm
Okay.
just gonna help you as the party.
Sure.
here.
Yep.
So I think the way to handle that is you have a motion. Is there a motion to approve the application as submitted? And I think that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Correct.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded, and then you ask, is there any discussion? And during this discussion period is when Mr. Long or any member could say, I would move an amendment to the motion.
Is there any discussion?
I definitely would like to see less variances. I don't know if I want to specifically say that I would agree to just changing the square footage on the house. But I would like for me to at least give the opportunity to change what is being asked here as far as the variances go, to be more acceptable to the zoning rules.
Is that, sorry, Alex,
no,
you said it's not feasible, correct? There's gonna be a minimum 3 no matter what, correct?
Based on, yeah, I don't personally see a way how, because if you change, I don't think you can get rid of both the front and the rear setback variance asks, and you can't get rid of the lot
You can't
size ask
can't.
itself.
turn the front of the house to the other road.
You could potentially, but I don't think there'd be enough room either way. What are you saying to the Cherry Street, or are you saying to that private
That-
drive?
Is it a private drive?
Yeah, the one to the north is, yes.
Yes. Would that then be able to meet your side setbacks, your rear setback? You probably would still have a shortened front setback.
If the front of the home was to the private drive to the north, I believe I would need to do more research on that, just because looking at it, our front setback is based on the right of way, and there would not be a right of way directly to the north of this property. So I would need to do more research and see exactly how that would work. And I think it would need to front to Walnut. As far as, I don't know how addresses would work in this, and if Carl
Or side load garage.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that would work. It would abide by our side and probably be able to fit the front and the rear setback in that case, but I don't know officially if that would be able to be completed. Do we know if the other houses on that are Walnut
I
addresses?
was gonna say the same thing. I don't know 100%, but I assume, again, it's measured off the center line of
Yeah.
the roadway, not the center line of some other point.
Right.
The other thing I guess I would add from a city perspective, I don't know that we would recommend that you turn the side of the house to the street. I think our design preference would be to keep the front of the house facing the street. Even if that meant a reduction. But again, for the decision of reduction is your issue.
I understand, but even if you didn't turn it, you could go with a skinnier footprint. Your house doesn't have to be so deep. So I'm voicing what, I guess, where I stand with the variance as requested, and I'm not sure if just by changing the square footage would set the precedence that I feel like we should be setting for our zoning. So I'm not sure as far as like creating an amendment. I mean, I would say they're welcome to submit or adjust the variances. If that's what they would like to do, we could do voting after that.
And we're gonna ask.
I just wanted to reiterate, we're gonna have 3 minimum variances, right?
As far as I can tell, based on this, yes. I can do further research to see if we would be able to limit it down
So-
without putting that drive on the
I
private.
don't, I guess my takeaway is I don't see a scenario where they can resubmit this without those variances. If that's my understanding.
And if the fourth one is the size of the house, right, is that material enough to note that it's a variance, given some of the other, the houses in that area?
So I just didn't want to restrict the applicant from not being able to adjust the variances to prior to voting, but I don't know if I'd want to make an amendment or not, or proceed to vote.
So we have 2 options. One, to vote tonight, or to table this for a new visit to the home and how the plan would be.
Yeah, I think we walked away though from the last meeting thinking that, for the most part, the BZA had the information that it thought it needed to be able to make a decision. So, and we have at least, as many members as we could possibly get here. So I'm not sure that we would be able to add a lot more information to the discussion. I mean, there is sort of this question of whether or not you could turn or skinny up the house a little bit. Like, I think even not from a zoning perspective, but from a design perspective, I think that'd be consistent with where the city's been with other design standards. So I guess the question is, would you like to offer an option in which they reduce the number of variance requests, or are you ready to proceed to the vote? So if Mr. Long doesn't want to do that, it doesn't mean that another member can't offer an amendment.
I'll make an amendment for the square footage requirements to be met with the existing motion.
Yeah.
Can we have a little bit of a leeway on that square footage? We're asking for 1,100. I think it's 1,400. Can we give them a range?
I would just add to that. I mean, he did point out that's gonna make the house almost stick out from the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. Where I don't think they were opposed to additional square footage. I think they were trying to make it match more of the existing houses. But that was just my takeaway. I get your point.
I don't think there's any other options to reduce variances though.
Right, that's what I was saying. Is that material enough to force them into a 1,400 square foot home when the rest of the homes are in around the range that they're looking for? So it does fit that area a little bit better. I would propose an amendment where it's between 1,100 square feet and 1,400 square feet. And it can't go on either side of that.
So can I recall my amendment?
There isn't a second yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'd like to make an amendment where there's a range for the square footage between 1,100 square feet and 1,400 square feet. Fitting the size of the homes in the neighborhood and getting as close to to not having that fourth variance as possible.
I'll second.
So you have a motion and a second, so now the discussion should be about that amendment.
Okay. Is there any discussion in the board about that amendment?
I mean, it's not removing any, we still have 4 variances. I'm not sure if that's productive for them or for us by moving in that direction. But that's probably my only statement on that one. I guess the question a little bit to me for the board is, does that change how we would vote if we made that amendment even?
I will say it will not change, the amendment will not change my vote.
I would say it would not change my vote.
So, but I'm just calling that out in the sense of I wouldn't make that an amendment if it's not gonna sway.
Well, I will say the amendment or even removing a variance request would not change my vote. I'll add to that comment.
To reduce the number of variances outside of the square footage could potentially change my vote.
Any other discussion about the amendment? You're not required to say whether it changes your vote or not. There is no more discussion.
Right, and then, so a vote on the amendment, that's what's on the table. So
We
we're
will,
ready for a roll call. Whether or not to accept the amendment, doesn't mean you've accepted the base, motion, you're just talking about the amendment.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
No,
Mr. Shrewsbury,
yes.
4 yeas, motion approved.
So, all right, so now what you have is you have the amended motion on the table for consideration.
Okay.
So it's basically the three zoning or the three variance requests with a house structure that's somewhere between not more than 1,100, but not greater than 1,400 square feet. So now discussion on that.
I was gonna make a motion.
Oh, you don't need to.
Okay.
The motion's already on the floor. So
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
I don't.
No other discussion, so we will move forward to, well,
the roll call vote.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
no,
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba, 4 yeas, motion approved.
Okay,
Thank you.
congratulations, Mr. Wampler, Mr. and Mrs. Wampler. So we'll move forward to the variance request from Mr. Bennett. Is there any remaining items to discuss amongst the board for this variance request?
I mean,
Just be one question.
Yeah.
So when we make a motion to approve, do we have to say anything about the back fence height and that? Would that be an amendment as well? It's the first time I remember.
You guys will just go straight to that motion, given that the applicant has expressed that we're
Okay.
looking at some amend resolution or an amend request.
Just make it clear if that's what you're voting on, that that's what you're voting on.
Well, so I'll pose this question to you, Vic. So the variance isn't necessarily for a 6-foot fence. It's just for a privacy fence in a quarter or rear lot. So does the board want to restrict the height on that, or are they fine with? If it's approved, it's fine.
And just to be clear, I mean, they don't have to reduce the size. They're just doing that out of a
Yeah,
good
for the
gesture,
neighbor.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, 6 foot is fine. They're just being good neighbors.
Yeah.
So we could approve it as is, and it's just, they're gonna do it themselves to reduce it to 4 feet.
Yeah.
That's right. So if you were gonna restrict it, it'd be a, restriction or safeguard that the board was imposing. That would be up to you if you wanted to do that, if the applicants offer or not.
It's necessary.
I think that sets a precedence, to be honest. Now, I mean, my backyard goes down. Does that mean I can only, you know what I mean?
Do we have any communication from anyone that was sent a mailing on the height?
I've heard no public comment on this.
Is there a motion or any proposal to defer from the variance request? Anybody like to make a motion?
The motion to vote?
Yes.
Yes, I'll motion to vote on the variance, please.
I'll second.
So motion to approve the application that's submitted.
Oh, motion to approve the application as submitted.
I'll second.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Congratulations, Mr. Bennett. Okay, next order of business, the approval of minutes from our November meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 18th, 2024 BZA minutes.
I'll second.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Okay, our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for January 20th.
And then on that, that is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Right now, I don't believe we have any applicants for that,
Okay.
but we'd be open to discussion for moving that meeting if that is okay with you guys, if we do get an applicant.
Yeah, if there's an applicant, just let us know and we can discuss it via email or phone or whatever.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe there's nothing else to discuss and we need a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make the turn.
Second.
Mr. Palma,
Yeah.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
5 yeas,